Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, a 5 and a 7, a 6 and a 6, or if a 6 turned out to be 9, a Jimi Hendrix album, or a college football playoff conversation. It's next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And new customers join today, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, my man. And we are edging closer to the weekend, but not yet quite back in to basketball mode. We're back there tomorrow as we set the table for the Red Raiders back on the road from Iowa State. But today, it's a whole lot of football consideration. Never mind a break to think college football. And what we've got to get into today is a couple of Big 12 win totals, courtesy of our friends at FanDuel. We'll tell you where the Red Raiders are and some of their peers as well, but also considering postseason things as it involves the new landscape of this modern, progressive, contemporary, expanded playoff college football era that we are soon to be in. There's going to be some various numbers that we're going to dive into: 5 plus 7, 6 plus 6 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion. Some of these kind of hard to even fathom what it's going to look like, right? But there's a whole lot of moving and shaking and shuffling right now as to who is going to get what, whether it is cold hard cash or automatic qualifying playoff bids, and whether or not you're in the Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC, or Pac-Deuce. You're just wanting to have the best seat at the table. So a whole lot to consider. Maybe lost on some fans, Chris, that are not all that interested in the boardroom aspect of college football, but it's going to impact everything that we're going to be enjoying very soon in the fall.
Yeah, I used to pay less attention to stuff like this at this time of the year, but now really I pay a lot of attention to it because it really is it shakes the ground beneath you in that the way that the postseason is decided, who's in control of it, when you localize it, it's just how Texas Tech exists in the football space. And this is how realignment gets going. This is how the TV contracts that we spend so much time gets going. And it just trickles down. And it's how so many things are thought of with this in mind on how the playoff or the champion will be decided. But there's been some recent meetings, and I guess it was last week in the Metroplex with these the head of college football, which are these commissioners and everybody trying to decide. Bill Hancock, I guess the head of the playoff for now. I think he's about to step away if he hasn't already. But that group is trying to decide. Okay, we've only got 2 more years left agreed to. This postseason and then the next one. It's a 12-team format. We know the dates. We know the locations. We know, well, for the most part, we know the locations for the semifinals and the title game. But the opening round games and then all those kinds of things are still to be determined. But and then here's the kicker, man. I don't know. You'd have to tell me how many billions this was, but I think I saw. Was it like 1.6 billion? Is that right on what ESPN just agreed to off into the future, agreed to the whole college football playoff presentation from a TV standpoint? I think
1.3, but what's 300
okay.
million?
Okay.
Exactly. It's fair change.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like 6 more years or something. It was like, it wasn't just like 6 years. What's fascinating to me, because I have some concerns here, but what is also fascinating to me is, so you're telling me that you agreed to a media rights deal for a dollar figure, and we don't even know what you've agreed to. Like that, they don't even know what they're going to air on TV yet, because they haven't agreed to any sort of approved format past the 26th year. They could expand it, they could shrink it, they could do whatever the hell they want, but they know what the dollar figure is, I guess. And that's just been agreed to. It hasn't been necessarily approved. But anyway, it's like we're getting the cart before the horse a little bit. But right now they can't agree on format. But I'm a bit concerned that ESPN is in line to be the sole rights holder for everything that relates to a college football championship. And granted, I'll hear the the CBS argument with the NCAA tournament and all that stuff, but I think this is apples and oranges, because Turner has all of college basketball, but the NCAA really runs that. But in this case, you have the SEC is about to move every bit of their content from a football standpoint over to ESPN or their family of networks. There is no CBS on Saturday afternoon anymore. No, everything is on ESPN now. U2 plus the big one, ABC, I guess, all the stuff. And for them to kind of control the sport, I mean, their own interests are going to be questioned, and already are in many instances. And yes, it's good that the Big 12 is also partnered with ESPN in some way, but you're not solely on there. I don't know. I'm a bit leery of kind of some of this talk, but heck, I don't even know what they've agreed to yet to decide the championship past 2026. And again, this is a bit off of the distance, but it's not that far. But does your league even have an automatic bid, past 2026? We don't know this yet, and if it doesn't, that's like saying the Big 12 doesn't get the Big 12 tournament champion in Kansas City doesn't get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Okay, then what are we doing this for?
Yeah, except aside from 60 plus spots available, when you're not getting the auto bid, there are 12, which has been like pulling teeth for a century plus just to get college football to expand a playoff to that point. It took like 100 years for them to say, hey, let's have a tournament like every other level of football on earth does. And the brilliant minds involved said, all right, you want to go tournament? Okay, we got 5 power leagues. Now, how many spots do we want to have? 4. 4 is the answer. So we're not expecting logic and sense to play a large part in this. Although, this era we're about to get into was a pipe dream of mine a decade ago. Never would have thought we'd even gotten here. So I guess maybe I should be a little more open-minded as to what the future could hold. We're going to have some on-campus action. Again, another pipe dream, double pipe dream. I can't believe that we're even getting any of this, but I just can't fathom that you're going to be cutting out entirely an automatic bid from what would still remain to be, if not at least 50%, I don't know, 60% of the college football fan bases when you're considering the Big 12 and the ACC. So I think auto bid, I'm still feeling fairly secure about, but what's it look like beyond that? I think we've kind of had this conversation before. What are you going to have to be if you're a second place team in the Big 12 conference or the ACC record wise to then still beat out the other 3 or 4 SECs or Big Tens
nearly
they're going to want to put in. Yeah, exactly. Like, you think you're going to elbow Indiana and Illinois out of that picture? Yeah, right, buddy. We're talking blue bloods there. I don't know what the preference necessarily is, and this is where we get into 5+7 or 6+6. The 5 is a 4 auto bid for power conference scenario with one group of 5 champion auto bid scenario, and then obviously the 6 would resemble, I think, an era gone by. Some have suggested that would be 2 group of 5 champions. That seems like way too much real estate reserved for group of 5 folks when there's only 12 slots. The era gone by was when the Pac-12 still existed. And this is one of the more hilarious aspects of this all, Chris. You've got these big billion-dollar conglomerates in the room, and they're all being held at knife point by Washington State and Oregon State right now as far as the Pac-2's voting prowess is concerned. That model is going to be voted on in a few days. That's coming up on February 20th when you're going to have the 5+7 or 6+6 actually voted upon. But I don't know about you. I just can't fathom that auto bids are going away entirely for the Big 12 or the ACC, because again, when you're breaking down the numbers as far as what used to be considered Power 5 programs, you're talking 60 plus, like, I don't know, 62, 64, 65, throwing in like Notre Dame, formerly a BYU, some of those independents. And there are not 60 plus involved in the Big 10 and SEC alone. Maybe I'm just hoping against hope or telling myself this, but I just can't imagine you're cutting out that big a swath when it comes to national college football fans. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the sports calendar keeps turning and the action never stops with America's #1 sports book and the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet hits. There are so many ways to spice up any action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. So get to FanDuel.com/locked-on. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/locked-on, official partner of the NBA.
Yeah, Washington State and Oregon State, man, they're just fighting for whatever little control that they possibly have on paper as it relates to being now in charge of the Pac-12/2.
I'm kind of entertained by it, by the way. I'm almost rooting for them at this point to stick everybody up.
The little guy. I mean, literally. I mean, yeah, Pullman and Corvallis, man, like the hubs of college football. Man, there's right. Yeah, and just wait till Texas Tech takes Washington State's offensive line coach; they'll really be in trouble. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think I don't think they're going to take away an automatic bid. What you get, because I mean, like, and you mentioned the group of five. Like, I think in real time last year, had you had the well, like I say last year, like this past 6 weeks or month or whatever it was when you had the college football playoff, you would have been talking about Liberty and SMU being involved. Yeah, no, man. I mean, like, it's just not gonna. Yeah, I don't buy that. What the discussion between the Big Ten and the SEC like a week and a half ago? We're gonna get together. We're gonna kind of make sure that everything is right, and just get ready because they're gonna start throwing their weight around. And I don't know. Are they gonna say, hey, we want, because I mean the 5 and the 7 is what most people want. They may say, no, we want to guarantee 2 automatic. I don't know what they're going to say. Yeah. I really don't. It's money related. It's more control. We have the population, we have the audience, so we should get the most out of this and glean the most out of this, which is crazy because you mentioned like. Yes, and that includes the Indianas, the Illinois, the Rutgerses, the Mississippi States, the Vanderbilts. I mean, it's like some of this makes your head want to explode. But this is, I mean, I wish some of these leagues would get into. Everybody was in the scoop it up business years ago, like going for TV markets and all these things. I wish they would relegate now, like they do over in Europe with the soccer teams, man. Guys, you're just not pulling your weight.
Contraction, yeah.
We're gonna. It's like Survivor. We're gonna extinguish your flame here, and like you're just done. You're voted off the island. Like you're sorry, like we're not replacing you. We just don't want you on our team anymore. Yeah. Anyways, but keep. There's about to be more meetings. I think next week. Keep your head on a swivel as far as some of this stuff goes and what decisions come out because it is massive in scale as far as the way this sport is going to go now and into the future. And you're right, like the Big 12 and Texas Tech and everything everyone's paying very close attention as to what is decided or not decided.
I'm also curious in what's happening this next go around as it relates to some bowl tie-ins, how that could impact the Big 12 conference, because apparently I guess you're going to have some former Pac-12 members, and obviously these 2 that are still remaining, maintaining Pac-12 bowl ties. Am I understanding this correctly?
So it was reported earlier this week that the formerly known as the Pac-12 would still fill its previous bowl tie-ins, like this coming postseason. that those agreements are in place until 2025. So I'm gathering, unless I read it wrong, I think this is just the one more year. Because first of all, Calvin, I'm fascinated. Like, I was asking these questions either to myself and maybe aloud on this show with you back when we were going through the bowl setup this past. Okay, next year you got this expanded playoff. What is the bowl setup going to look like? Not only because you've just expanded the Big 12 and you've bloated to 16, and a lot of leagues have, so that alters things. And then there's a conference that's no more. So, like, okay, when the Big 12 plays the Pac-12 and the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, does Oklahoma, like in this previous year, do they stand over there and look at nobody? Well, no, Oklahoma wouldn't be standing there either because they're going to the SEC. But, I mean, hey, Pac-12 member, we showed up for the game. Where you at? I mean, so I just had no idea, like, how this was going to go. So, to catch everybody up, what has been talked about is that for at least another year, I gather, there's agreements in place where the formerly known as the Pac-12, it's like Prince, they're going to just maintain their same bowl tie-ins. I'm going to guess, because that is the case, you may see the Big 12 doing the same. I could be wrong, but I bet we get like this is almost kind of like let's just kind of hold on here with this stuff, and then we'll kind of figure it out once everybody's where they're going to be as far as realignment, because you're still waiting on Utah and these other schools to show up and be officially a parts of your league, and Texas and Oklahoma are not in the SEC yet, and then we can kind of reset the deck. The other thing is, I don't know when some of these bowls are going to be, Cowan, because they would scoop up. ESPN owns them all, most of them. So be aware there. They would block up all these windows on these Saturdays before Christmas. Well, now I think that some of those Saturdays are scooped up with exclusive TV windows with the college football playoff, like opening round games or even quarterfinal games, however we would term those. Yeah. And so you're not going to have all the Gasparilla Bowl and the whatever bowl on Saturday. So they're going to have to move the dates around and all those things. So yeah, I was, because odds are Texas Tech and a lot of these Big 12 schools are going to still play in a lot of these bowl games. You may get one team, maybe two into the playoff, even though it's expanded. So there's a direct kind of way to localize that and try to figure out what's going to go on there.
You nudge around that Gasparilla Bowl, fine, but you keep your hands off the Cheez-It Bowl. I mean, one of America's sacred traditions. We all know what day the Cheez-It Bowl is going down.
Pop-Tarts. We're eating mascots. I mean, we're dumping mayo on people.
That sounds like a long night on the throne back in college. Cheez-Its, mayo, Pop-Tarts. What else we got? Maybe chug a bottle of syrup. All right, there's a whole lot left to be decided, but again, some of this happening within days, particularly that format vote coming up on February 20th. So keep your head on a swivel, and I'm sure we will circle back around to that whenever the time comes. As for wrapping up our conversation here today, Chris, let's stay in a football frame of mind and in the Big 12 Conference, the new Big 12 Conference. Our friends at FanDuel have kicked out some Big 12 win projections as it relates to the upcoming season. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events. And with Gametime, you never will, because it's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime also the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Again, download the Gametime app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed with Gametime. Obviously, some new members now joining. We've got previous new members back for year number 2. And I was kind of interested to see that among the two highest win totals, 8.5, 9.5, that represented 6 teams And it was a pretty good combination of either new members from a year ago, new members coming this year, and a couple of holdovers from the Hateful Eight era of the Big 12 Conference. K-State, Utah at the top of the list, both at 9.5. Kansas, Arizona, Texas Tech, UCF, all sitting there at 8.5. They got Oklahoma State, Texas Christian, Iowa State at 7.5, West Virginia, so on and so forth, down to 4.5 for the Cougars of BYU. But, man, it'd be pretty interesting if first time around in this expanded Big 12 Conference, you had some new members, some second-year members, and then some of the originals all competing for hardware there at the top.
Yeah, I saw this, and so the Red Raiders are at what, 8? The over/under is 8.5
Yep.
on wins. That's a lot more than last year. Obviously, if you go over that total, I say a lot more. I guess it would be 2 more, but
Feels like a lot more.
It does, especially on paper. Yeah. I agree, because I wasn't sure what you were going to get here. Some of this is they look at the schedule. What's fascinating is that, like, Oklahoma State is at 7.5. Is that what you said?
Yep. Yes, sir.
And that's going to be a team that a lot of people picked to win this league in the preseason with so much back, especially on offense. And yet, there's a 7.5 wins. I didn't think that Central Florida would be as high as they are, because I think they're right there in your 8.5 win total company. Yeah. Yep. And West Virginia is at 7.5.
6.5.
6.5. See, that's a bit lower as well as what I would have, I guess, guessed. And Utah and Kansas State don't surprise me a bit. Arizona, it was at 8.5 as well, right there with you are. Yeah. See, Arizona is the one that I can see them still being really, really strong, or with the new coach and some portal exits and all that, maybe, just takes a bit to get them. I don't know, but that's what I was kind of, just curious. And again, these are wagers. They're trying to get equal, action on both sides of this. So they set the hook on a lot of this, because if you're at 9, for Texas Tech, you may go, I'll take the under. If it's at 8, you may take the over. But they put that and a half on there, which go back and check out the end of the Red Raiders basketball game against Central Florida, and go look up the point spread there if you want to know what that little half point will do to you. Woo boy. Bad beat, I think, is the term. I was beyond curious to see how this laid out conference-wide. Some of it, I'm like, okay. And then some of it, it made me, I don't know, not scratch my head. But like with Oklahoma State and West Virginia, this may be about, like, okay, this is who they have to play. This is who they don't have to play. For Texas Tech, it could be as much about this is who they have to play versus who they don't have to play. So that's what is interesting as you look at this. And that I guarantee you is a heavy factor into how they try to project what a team is going to do. You don't have to play. Like, what did you just say? That Utah and Kansas State were at the top, and
Yes,
they're at 9.5, right? That there's nobody else there, right?
No.
Okay, for the Red Raiders, you don't have to play either. Probably factors in at some level on maybe you getting the nudged into the 8.5 win category versus 7.5. I don't know, but anyway, I love looking at this stuff. It's what we kind of look at much earlier than the season gets here, just to kind of get a feel for things. And then it's always semi right, but it's never dead on. That's the fun part. And you try to figure out, okay, well, what are they going to be wrong about? Because, I mean, how many times have we all been offended as Tech fans? 5.5 win total. They just don't know. They don't know what we got working out over there, man. They hadn't seen our guys. Our guys are working hard. They're bigger, faster, stronger. Our quarterback is going to stay healthy this year. Then they end up going like 4-7 on the year. And you're like, damn, they were right. But
it's been a while since I've been that bullish, I got to say. I'm traumatized as a Tech fan.
But I remember doing this with basketball Big 12 preseason poll when Texas Tech was not very good. And they'd always be picked to finish like 9th or 10th. And I just would be like, there's just no way they're finishing that low. Just the blatant disrespect. Yeah, you were like not even an NIT team, and you were like 9th or 10th in a lot of those years. And I was like, Damn, why are they always so right? It's so frustrating. Anyways, so
I know the Pac-12 transfers don't really have this experience or trauma to consider when projecting their team's win total. The new Big 12 members from this previous season got a little taste of it, but now no more, as you have roughly, I don't know, $430 million worth of athletic budget walking out the door in Texas and Oklahoma. You know, going into last season, Chris, I was a 7-5 regular season man as far as Texas Tech's projection was concerned. And that's what I'm going to have a hard time kind of chopping up this offseason, is trying to figure out what it's worth to me that UT and OU are not on this schedule. Because as you're looking ahead to this new era, I think whether you consider Texas Tech improved or not, that's got to play in to what your projection is going to be. And I know also, as you astutely pointed out, K-State and Utah not on your schedule as well. So as I'm sitting here looking at 8.5 for Texas Tech, I want to be bullish on that. I'm probably still a little more in the bearish category right now just because of our dark horse trauma from an offseason ago. But there's no doubt that there's going to be some new territory up for grabs, obviously, in this league. When you don't have Sooners or Longhorns occupying that, it has more so been Oklahoma that has been the mainstay occupying that over the previous decade or decade plus. UT just now coming back around to regaining the ranks of pulling the weight that they like to throw around, but no longer our problem. But there's going to be somebody that's got to fill some of these shoes as far as those wins are concerned. And for original Big 12 members, it's still, I think, at least speaking personally, you know, a new experience trying to figure out who you're avoiding whenever you're thinking about some of these totals, because used to we got everybody.
Yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma. I looked it up just a second ago just to make sure, but Oklahoma's over under win total this next year 7.5. Be careful what you wish for. Hello, SEC.
Somebody's got to come in last.
See you, boys. Yeah, that'll go over well in Norman. I mean, there's only one 7-5 team in Oklahoma. No, yeah, I think Utah thinks they're going to come in and run this conference. I think their fan base is like ruffled a lot of feathers. I think the last fan base that did that was Central Florida's, who was humbled repeatedly on several Saturday afternoons. But we'll see who's right here. I think of the newcomers. I mean, Utah and Arizona certainly have a really good foundation on paper. They really should be able to, I think, have some success initially. But it's not going to necessarily shock me if it's like, oh, man, this is a bit different than we're used to, or the style of football or the travel, whatever. But I do think that, though, there's a lot of people that are pointing at Utah saying, okay, one, they can really do well here, and two, boy, they think they're just going to come in and run this thing. And, boy, they're in for a rude awakening. So we'll see who's right.
Fingers crossed that would be the case. Before we get out of here, one more from the bottom tier of this projection that I'm saying, I wonder. Colorado, 5.5. Been doing some work on the recruiting trail. I know from a season ago there's not a whole lot to look at and think, boy, they sure are ready to ascend in the new Big 12 conference. But that roster will be changed. And I'm curious to see if maybe they're going to exceed 5.5.
You know, they here's what I would say about Colorado. They went and spent, the rumor was, big money on the offensive line. I mean, there was a lot of rumors in the industry about how much they just basically shelled out to paid for guys up front to protect Shedeur Sanders. He could, in fact, be the best quarterback, and really easily so, in the Big 12, next year. I think he's a pro prospect. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, he could, in fact, be the best quarterback, hands down, and in the Big 12 conference. Colorado could also have the best player in the league and one of the best in college football in Travis Hunter. That's also a true statement. But there's so many other things that they needed, and they just couldn't sustain anything. And really, Shedeur and Hunter, those two kids, they couldn't stay healthy. So, there's a lot to, the week-to-week grind here that we'll see if they've ably addressed all their weaknesses and and all those things. And there's a lot of staff shuffling that's gone on with Colorado's coaching staff this past offseason. So we'll see. But yeah, they're a wild card for sure. But I think they're going to have to prove it and show that they can be better than just in September. I think that the college game day and the whole hype and all that, it's like, you really want to blame TCU for that, because TCU is the one that got slipped up on. And then next thing you know, it's like, let's just crown Colorado and then away we go, and
might also blame Dion a little bit for that.
Well,
asking people post game, are you a believer now? Are you a believer now?
He did. He's like, I got receipts.
Amazing.
I know what you wrote. I saw,
And coming to town. We'll have him right here in the LBK.
And ultimately, TCU just wasn't very good. But yeah, shame on us. But yeah, I think a lot of people will be slow to come around this time around, or slower. How about that? But yeah, sure. Wild card for sure. They got some talent.
Man, looking forward to finding out how the dust will settle. And coming up tomorrow, we are back to a basketball state of mind as we'll set the table for Texas Tech and Iowa State. Potentially a couple Coach of the Year candidates squaring off there in Ames on Saturday. We'll get to that and more on tomorrow's episode as we wrap up the week. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you then.
Love talking football, man. Yeah, even though it's post-Valentine's Day, we're in the middle of February. Bring it on. Love the pigskin, man. Keep hope alive, everybody. We'll talk to you in the morning.
And make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for being out there, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.